So, I've wanted to do a Nuzlocke for years now. Unfortunately, I have chronic terrified of failure disease, which has consistently chased me down and kicked me in the teeth every time I've tried to start one. So I thought, you know what? I'll try Soul Link. That seems less high stakes than a regular Nuzlocke. So, I grabbed the only other person I know who's into Nuzlockes, and we set off into the majestic region of Paldea. I'll be playing Scarlet, and my friend Royal will be playing Violet. He's also done a lot more Nuzlockes than me, which is not a high bar, to be fair. The competition is 0. But yeah, there is a very obvious weak link in the team here. Surely nothing will go wrong. You can check out the rules we're following in the description or pause to read them on screen right now if you want, but without further ado, let's get into it. We start off by immediately taking a massive L, and then booking it downstairs to meet Director Clavel. You are Master Irvi? Yes? Close enough. After striking what I hope is the fear of God into the school director, we make a beeline for Nemona's house to nab our starters. Using a complicated system of multiple coin flips, I end up with Quaxley and Royal with Frikoko, which was my first mistake, but we'll get to that. We name them Joe and Mama, indiscriminately murder Nemona's Frikoko and Sprigatito, and immediately make for Poco Path to get our first wild encounter of the run. Which, seems on brand, honestly. Alright,
give me that spud. Now remember, if you fuck up your encounter, I lose mine.
About that!
Okay, well, find the source of the mysterious cry.
Hey, Everett! You getting the hang of how to catch Pokemon, okay? Yeah, I'm doing great! Thanks for asking! It doesn't end there, though, because after leaping from a towering cliffside and taking a tour of the nearby cave with our respective bike lizards, we, kinda forget that Inlet Grotto counts as a separate encounter. So that's already 2 prospective Pokemon down the drain. In other words, we're doing fantastic so far. We then proceed to destroy Arvin's squirrel, at which point he goes, "Oh no, you've defeated me. Guess I have to give up this ultra-rare legendary Pokemon to you now. No take-backsies, bye!" We catch a Tarantula and a Azurill from South Province Area 1, which we name Orbin Ball, and commemorate reaching the first Pokemon Center by entering Union Circle and taking some cursed photos. I'd also just like to point out that Los Platos in Spanish literally translates to the dishes, and this is why I cannot take this game seriously as a Hispanic person. But here is where my choice of starter and incompetence in getting encounters comes back to bite me in the butt. Because you have to fight Nemona before entering Mesagosa, and she has a terastallizing Pawmi, which ordinarily wouldn't be a problem, except I have a water type and a Route 1 bug type, neither of which can take more than 2 hits from that thing. Royal, of course, is no trouble whatsoever and goes on a tour of Mesagoza while Nemona's Pawmi murders my entire team. Attempt number 2! Adding yet another L to the pile, we once again go through the motions of the beginning of Pokemon game. Not before Clavel haunts my nightmares with the murderer of my team, though. You people have no empathy. This time I end up with Sprigatito and Royal again with Frikoko, whom we name in honor of their fallen ancestors, Joseph and Mother. This, of course, means that Nemona picks Quaxley. You're picking Quaxley, Nemona! You're just rubbing my failure in my face, aren't you? No, Quaxley, don't go to her! She'll kill you! She'll kill you as she killed her the last one! No! I managed the very difficult task of not failing my encounters this run, so by the time we get back to the gates of Mesagosa, we've caught 3 team members each. Morb the Tarantula and Porb the Lechonk from Poco Path, Arnold the Yungoos and Robocop the Diglett from Inlet Grotto, and Cadbury the Fido and Hershey's the Paldean Wooper from South Province Area 1. We end up boxing Morb and Porb because 1, we can't have 2 normal types, and 2, looking at Tarantula gives me traumatic flashbacks, but needless to say, Nemona isn't going to pose any issues this time now that I have Mother on my team. I'm starting to regret this name. After another round of photos, some jump scares, and a drowning, we finally make it to Mesagosa and achieve the true escapist fantasy of going to school, where we immediately get asked to go beat up 8 gym goers, gather some sketchy sounding plants, bring down a local crime syndicate, get some milk from the store, bury a body, and it's like, homie, Do I look like a genie to you? Solve your own problems. Regardless, the story demands it, so off we go to Cortondo in pursuit of our first objective, defeating Gym Leader Katie. On the way there, and after some mishaps, we add Weasel the Weasel and Beep the Mareep to the team. And immediately after, Arnold nearly dies.
Oh, you had payback. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're fine. Oh yeah, because we're moving after it, that's what...
Yeah, because you're paralyzed. Convenient. Oh no. Hold on, I didn't see its health bar. Okay, it's alive.
It's okay, he lived on 3 HP, he's still happy, healthy, and alive. Relatively. We briefly venture into West Province Area 1 in hopes of getting an extra encounter before Katie, but... the Mudberry I find is a higher level than my whole team, and since I do not trust any of my Pokemon to not die, I get scared and run away. Whoops. At this point I'm starting to get a bit nervous since our Pokemon is still too low a level to learn any actually decent moves, and the only member of my team that might be able to counter Katie's bug types is Cadbury, who has no stab moves, and also hits about as hard as you'd expect a squishy little doe puppy to hit. Royal's got Fuecoco, so that pretty much guarantees him the win. And do you want to know what else he got along the way? Yeah, he just casually found a shiny before the first badge. And I would just like to add as well that at time of recording, he has now found 3 random shiny Hoppips in Violet alone. We end up benching it until I got a shiny of my own since we'd already gotten our encounters for this area and go start the gym challenge. We both decide to just go for it, and after struggling through the gym trainers, by which I of course mean that I clawed my way through while Royal cruised on by, we're finally face to face with Katie. Turns out I was just being paranoid. With the help of some bite flinches and baby doll eyes, and some hill stalling, Cadbury manages to handle Katie's team completely by himself. Good dog. Best friend. First badge in hand, we make a 180 for South Province Area 3, where we catch Pop Rock the Nackley and Fun Dip the Shinx. And also defy the laws of physics. Our starters also evolved, which results in this glorious screenshot. And I immediately nearly lose Pop Rock to a Cloth ambush, but it's fine, he's a tanky boy, he's fine. The Cloth population sends yet another warning before we reach the Titan, but I've got a Terra Florigata with a Miracle Seed. I mean, this can't possibly go bad for me. So we start the fight, and it's looking to be a 2-shot for Mother. And then Cloth's Anger Shell activates, which I forgot it had. It follows up with a Rock Smash, which gets a defense drop. And I think, no biggie, I'll just outspeed and finish it off before it can attack again. Besides, Mother will definitely survive another hit. And then it outspeeds with the Anger Shell boost, and gets a crit, which absolutely demolishes my Grass Cat. I am absolutely heartbroken, but also kind of still in the middle of a fight, so there's little time to grieve. Good old dependable Cadbury manages to finish off Cloth, and also take care of its second phase with the help of Arven's Shelter. Royal gets by perfectly fine with Hershey's, but now we're each down a starter, right before the grass gym, which they would have both resisted. So, my bad. Rest in peace, Joseph and Mother. Dead to my hubris. After partaking in some magic herbs with Arven, we make the trip to Arteson and catch Jekyll the Oricorio and hide the Venonat right outside of town. Which I'm initially excited about because, hey, fire type right before the grass gym. Until I realize that Oricorio doesn't learn Revelation Dance, its signature move, until level 40. And yes, she's also part flying. But Brassius' Sudowoodo has Rock Throw, which means Jekyll will be allowed nowhere near that thing and I'll have to think of a different strategy. A small bout of research later, I head back to Inlet Grotto with a vengeance to grab materials for some Fire Fang TMs, which I teach to both Cadbury and Arnold. I also buy charcoal back in Misagosa just for that extra bit of damage. Once again, I needn't have worried as Cadbury easily deals with Brassius' team. He even burns and flinches his Sudowoodo in the same turn. Meanwhile, Royal breezes through with Hershey's and Poison stalling. Cadbury and Hershey's are really earning their spot on the team. For some reason, Game Freak decided to make the ideal journey through Paldea into a zigzag, So back we go to the west to face the Open Sky Titan, which goes without a hitch thanks to the dynamic duo of Pop Rock and Fun Dip, and Arven's inferior Knackley. The battle was apparently so riveting that the moon itself wrenched itself free from the gravitational pull of the Earth to come watch.
Hell yeah. For the second time.
Hello? The moon?
What the f- What the f-
Bruce
Moon
Almighty,
jumps.
is that you? This isn't the last of the strange occurrences, however, as Royal witnesses an apparition whilst in the cave with Arven. Not the best of omens considering mere seconds later we meet Arven's dying dog, but I'm sure everything will be fine. While making our way to the second squad base to fight Giacomo, this lady and her oinkolo nearly demolished my entire team, and this has been my official lesson in hubris and never underestimating regular trainers. We also figure out that we can technically catch Pokemon in the team star bases by luring them close to the border, which, you know, sounds a bit sketchy, but the game says it counts, so we decided it was fine. So welcome Dirt the Rockruff and Bike the Skiddo to the team! After battling our way through the second squad base, leaving a trail of dark-type carnage in our wake, we get accosted by the local DJ and his sentient car. Arnold, who has evolved into a Gumshoos and now actually has good moves, makes quick work of his Pawniard and then is back to good old Cadbury to take down the Starmobile. Royal has a bit more trouble, but eventually manages to win the war of attrition with Fun Dip and Hershey's, who have both also evolved by this point. I am also taking full credit for that win since I apparently phased through dimensions and into the middle of Royal's battle. We boomerang back on over towards East Province Area 2, where we decided to switch over to Terra Raid encounters instead for true random encounters. But then, while on the way to Tekka Crystal, Royal suffers a vicious collision courtesy of a Cyclizar, and thus begins a trend. But we'll get to that. So I just end up catching a nearby Meryl instead, and we name them Motor and Boat respectively. Afterwards, we finally remember that we've acquired the ability to not drown when touching a single molecule of water, so we pay a visit to a couple of Paldea's various seas. In the East Paldean Sea, we catch Left Brame the Marini and Right Bran the Arrokuda. And back down south, we catch Winger the Wattrel and Stinger the Quillfish. Both pairs contain, of course, water types and are thus useless for Iono's electric types. And also, we already have a boat, so they'll just warm the bench for now. Speaking of boat, she evolves into a yacht, which isn't important right now because water type, but I probably don't need to point out that a huge Power Azumarill and a Cyclizar are a fantastic pair. In preparation for Iona, we switch out Pop Rock and Fun Dip for Bike and Dirt so that I can have some sort of electric counter on my team. Nemona challenges us before we can even get to start the gym challenge, but Yacht and Hershey's destroy her. Revenge is sweet. After playing Where's Wally with the VTuber who isn't actually a VTuber for some reason and she's just like that, we face off against Iono. Cadbury takes out her Wattrel and then I bring in Bike to implement my strategy. Which is just setting up Leech Seed and Bulk Ups against her Bellabolt, and then murdering the rest of her team in broad daylight. Royal, as he so aptly put it, has a Clodsire and a Dream, so he's good. In addition to humiliating Iono, and getting a gym badge, I guess, Cadbury evolves into Daxbun, which I'm really excited about, because his new ability, Well-Baked Body, gives him a fire immunity. The boy is cooked! And right in time for Mela and her fire types too, so I'm sure you can guess what happens. If you guess that I completely forget to use Cadbury against Mela, you'd be completely correct. By the Shedar squad base, we catch Timon the Steenie and Pumbaa the Litleo, who we immediately box and forget about. And then we proceed to spend the next 84 years battling Mela. I'm not saying it was a hard fight, it really wasn't. Jekyll brought down her Torkoal with no problems, but her Starmobile not only has Screech, which lowers your defense by 2 stages, meaning I have to switch out or risk dying to some badly timed crits, but it also kept burning Yacht every time I brought her out, which just absolutely neuters her attack power. So yeah, that was fun! Anyway, now that I'm an aging pensioner, it's time to venture out into East Province Area 3 to battle the lurking Steel Titan. Once again, we try to do a Terra Raid encounter, but then a Bramblin materializes underneath me, so cool! My 4th grass type! Alas, the Nuzlocke decrees I must catch it, so I name it Buckaroo, and Royal ends up pairing it with a Cufant named Bronco, who apparently nearly demolishes his team, but no one died, so it's fine. While crossing the wastelands, I witness a demonic apparition. Not a physical presence, no. A dark shadow, eerily headed towards the very same spot. Oh, it's this Royal. You gotta stop jump scaring me, man. Anyway, Earthworm is pretty easy. I found a Brick Break TM on the way here, which I immediately taught to Yacht, and then she just terrestrialized into pure water to resistive skill moves. Royal used Hershey's. Back over yonder in western Paldea, we stop by Cascarafa to steal an old man's wallet, and then catch Mithril the Bronzor and Tanya the Tinkatink next door in the Asado Desert. We cross over to West Province Area 2, where, once again, the plan is to do a Terra Raid encounter, but as I'm checking a pack of Tauros for shinies, I get absolutely bodied by one of them, so... Welcome aboard, Bath the Tauros and Gull the Giraffe Rig. Anyway, we make it to Puerto Marinada, and proceed to fight a guy for the right to, regrettably, give Kofu his wallet back. We also participate in an auction, which I'm pretty sure is illegal because we're like 2 years old, before hopping into the West Paldean Sea for our next encounter. Unfortunately, Royal ends up running into a level 60 Raichu, which brings us to the realization that the Pokemon here are just a tiny bit too strong for our current teams to handle, so, no encounter there. After that L, we head back on over to Cascarafa to fight Kofu. A combination of Bike and Jekyll, who I've switched to her Sensu form, takes him out with little to no issue. Turns out bulk up on Skiddo is a pretty decent strategy, who'd have guessed? Meanwhile, Motor and the Terra Poison Hershey's win Royal the fight as well. Shiny new badge in hand, our next task lies within Tag 3 Thicket, the Navi squad base. Now, the last few objectives have been pretty easy for the most part, but alas, Karma is a vicious two-faced prick. And after looking up Atticus's team, we realize that we are in big trouble. And by that I mean I'm in big trouble. Royal's team is fine. Atticus has super effective coverage for pretty much everything I could use to try to counter him. Man, if only I had a ground type. We've still got a couple of encounters to go before we actually have to fight Atticus though. Long story short, I was looking for Toxel materials to make an acid spray TM for my Marini, and after making the most sandwich of all time, we accidentally wander into South Province Area 4, which, to be perfectly honest, I just forgot existed. In my murderous rampage to get some Toxel sparks, I end up, accidentally stepping on one of them, which is now the 3rd time we've messed up getting a Terra Raid encounter. Welcome to the team, Dumb Baby the Toxel and Good Dog the Mastiff. We then head up to Tag 3 Thicket, where we catch Narcolepsy the Kamala and Insomnia the Strudel, and in the Navi squad base, Foops the Fungus and Doomps the Impidimp. And all of them immediately go in the box because we can't fit them on the team. After a long time strategizing, the team we decide on bringing to the fight is Jekyll and Hyde, Cadbury and Hershey's, Left Brain and Right Brain, Dumb Baby and Good Dog, and Bath and Gull. Timon and Pumbaa are also there, but let's just say we're beginning to consider the possibility that we might need death fodder. I would say that we made quick work of the grunts, but my Pokemon were actually struggling a lot, which does not bode well at all. But there's no time to turn back now. It's time to fight Atticus. Bath manages to plow through his Skuntank and Muck relatively easily with drill runs, but then I end up heal stalling his Revavroom out of Iron Head PP just to be extra safe because I refuse to lose Bath to a 5% drill run miss. He of course outspeeds and one-shots it immediately after it runs out of Iron Heads, but you never know. You never know. And then out comes his Starmobile, which I am terrified of, but I've prepared a hopefully foolproof strategy which should get us through it. And that strategy is Left Brain the Marini, who I severely underestimated because she tanks the Starmobile's strongest move like it's nothing. She gets off a few Chilling Waters to lower its attack even further, before dropping its special defense to -6 with Acid Spray. And with that, it's just Surf Spam to victory. Good job, you tiny little sea urchin. You won't become roadkill today. Defeating Atticus with no debts fills us with some, perhaps, unearned confidence, and we're not too worried about Larry and his normal types. It surely can't go that badly, I mean, it's Larry! We take a detour to the Dalisapa passage where I managed to find myself an Axew, and am properly overwhelmed with joy, mostly because it's a Gen 5 Pokemon. The fact that Haxorus is also just generally really freaking good is just a bonus for me. In the meantime, of course Royal runs into a level 41 Terra frickin' Sneasel, and I'm already getting ready to bid this Axew goodbye, but by some miracle of Arceus itself he manages to catch it. Thank God! Hello, Knife and Fork! Then right outside Medali we catch Shrom and Jerry, the Shroomish and Pikachu. Which are fine, I guess. They exist, and that's really all I can ask from them. With our new encounters safely boxed, it's time to face Larry. Baff is just after learning Raging Bull, so I'm feeling pretty certain we'll easily sweep this fight. Dumb Baby and Good Dog also evolved into Dumber Baby and Gutter Dog, so there's no way this goes wrong. Baff immediately one-shots his Kamala, while his Dunsparce puts up a bit more resistance with Glare, but eventually goes down as well. Next, and last, is his Terra Staraptor. Since Baff is baiting Aerial Ace here as a fighting type, I switch out to Dumber Baby who resists flying, and not 5 seconds later after I confirm the button prompt, I think Dumber Baby is the play here. Huh? Royal?
Dumber Baby is not the play.
Gooder Dog, who had been setting up against Larry's Komala all this time, gets crit by Slam and killed. Which is kind of awkward, because now I have a technically dead Pokemon currently switched into battle, and we hadn't really ironed out the semantics of this scenario. So we spent a couple of minutes discussing it and ended up with the rule set that the surviving member of a pair isn't considered dead until the end of the battle, but if they're switched in, they can no longer switch out or be healed. Of course, this ends up being the most pointless conversation of all time, because Dumber Baby immediately gets outsped and one-shot by Staraptor's Facade. So, sorry, Royal. I guess these two were just always meant to die. Maybe a blessing in disguise though, because I forgot Facade does double damage when you're suffering from the status condition, and I had gone for Nuzzle, so it would have probably wiped my team if Dumber Baby actually got the attack off, so thanks, Dumber Baby. Really took one for the team there. Anyway, Jekyll, who is currently immune to Facade, comes into Feather Dance and Teeter Dance's Staraptor, and eventually manages to whittle it down with Air Slashes to win us the gym battle. A few minutes later, Royal also manages to get through with no further debts, with the help of his calm-minded Farigiraf. Only for Nemona to immediately challenge us to a fight afterwards. And since we're not allowed to switch up our teams between these two battles, she essentially forces Royal to send out the corpse of his dead dog against her Lycanroc. Nemona, you actual f***ing psychopath! We beat her team into the ground, and after hopefully filing a police report against that menace to society, we finally have time to mourn our dead pets. Good night, smart baby and best dog. You were among the most mediocre of them all. Of course, though, we don't even get a chance to grieve properly, because we have to fight Rhyme next, and she's throwing punches before we even set foot in Montenevera. When we go and look up her team, what are her last two Pokemon? A dead dog and a Toxtricity that turns into a ghost type. Alright, Rhyme, listen up, you little Before we face off against this actual bully, though, we can get 2 more encounters. In South Province Area 5, which we also just kinda forgot about, we catch Tyr the Stantler and Dirtle the Choodle. And up in Glaciado Mountain, we get none other than another dog and another baby. The universe has got to be playing a cruel joke on us at this point. Anyway, we add Snowbutts the Grievard and Rugrats 2 to the squad before team building for Rhyme. I wouldn't be worried normally, but the fight against her is a double battle. And if both of her Pokemon decide to just gang up on one of ours, they can just die and there's nothing we can do about it. For our ghost-busting team, we bring Winger and Stinger, Baff and Gold, Jekyll and Hyde, Foomps and Doomps, Cadbury and Hershey's, and Snowbuds and Rugrats too. My strategy is for Foomps to spam Rage Powder to tank attacks, while Jekyll sets up Quiver Dances and sweeps with Air Cutter and Revelation Dance. I also changed her back to her Byleth form so she resists Bayonette's Icy Wind. Winger, whose ability is Volt Absorb, will sit in the back in case things get dicey with Toxtricity. Meanwhile, Royal's strategy involved leading Golan Doomps, setting up psychic terrain to prevent Rhyme's priority moves, and then setting up with Calm Mind and Stored Powering to victory, while Doomps tanked some hits. Pretty solid strategies overall, in my opinion. So despite it being a double battle, we weren't too worried going in. In prepping for Rhyme, however, we neglected to factor one dude, one guy, into our plans. MC Sledge. And his Drifblim. Did you know Drifblim can learn self-destruct? I didn't until I looked it up before the battle. And not only that, but cherry on top, it also knows Destiny Bond! But by that point we had already spent several hours prepping and we were tired and decided to just go for it and hope it worked out. So, we get up on stage and begin the short gauntlet of battles, with a crowd quickly gathering as time goes on. Oh, not for the battles though. The true star of the show is Wild Koraidon, who's invaded the stage and is going absolutely ballistic. It tries to crash the battle and fight us itself at one point, but alas, the laws of the universe prevent it from doing so. And then, the Drifblim comes out, together with a Sableye who knows Quash, which normally wouldn't be all that scary, but if Sableye quashes my Kilowattrel, Drifblim uses Destiny Bond, and then I end up one-shotting it with Thunderbolt, that could be game over for dear old Winger and Stinger. So I target down the Sableye first, which goes down to the combined attacks of Winger and Bath. And then Drifblim, unable to go on after the death of its closest friend, instantly goes for self-destruct. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Honestly, I have this really bad habit of making a mountain out of a molehill. I'm glad we were able to get through this battle with no death. So on the other side, Doomps got crit one-shot by self-destruct, which is really unfortunate, because now both of our strategies have, ironically, had a gaping hole blown into them. So we're gonna have to improvise a little bit. But no more procrastinating. It's time to fight Rhyme. Jekyll still leads off the fight, this time alongside Cadbury, who's mostly there to tank hits with his insane defense stat, and spam Charm on Rhymes' Mimikyu to lower its attack. Thankfully, while preparing for this battle, I forgot to take into account that, for some reason, both Mimikyu and Bayonette hit like a wet paper towel. So yeah, Jekyll gets to +6 special attack without a hit and then annihilates Rhymes' team. Royal similarly sweeps with Farigiraf and a Quiver Dancing Hide. Ghost Badge get with no further ghosts made! Except for Doomps and Foomps. Rest in peace. Hopefully this trend of losing one Pokemon per gym to an unfortunate crit isn't going to actually become a trend. Next on our plate is defeating the Quaking Earth Titan, Great Tusk. Or Iron Treads if you're like Royal and playing on the inferior version. Now, I had about 50 million fairy, water, and grass types to choose from, so I was pretty much set no matter what. But Royal's team has a bit of a glaring ground type weakness. So we very carefully ventured over to North Province Area 3, where he managed to get himself a Golduck called Savior, and I kinda just dejectedly caught yet another fairy type in Judas the Floette. For the sake of not wiping to Donnie McTrunkface over there, we also decided to let ourselves catch one each of the static titans we defeated earlier because our run, our rules, and cry about it. So some random number generating later, I end up with a Bombardier called Hungry, and a Royal gets an Earthworm called Lunch, which means more grinding! Yay! Which means fighting Chansey, which means normal and counter power sandwiches, which is my silky smooth segue into showing you all this actual monstrosity. Royal?
What?
Why
Stop
are there 4
piling.
servings of...
Oh my god. Oops, all ham.
God damn! You had one job!
And I succeeded.
You had one job! There's more!
Why?
Why is there so much ham?
Oh my god! And the 3 pickles!
Someone order a ham sandwich. A ham sandwich. Extra ham plus 3 pickles.
How did it not fall apart?
Anyway, we get everyone to a comfortable level, but my Floette is still unevolved, which is an issue because I'm not allowed to have a Azumarill or Darkspawn on my team currently due to type limitations. And Florges is an actually busted Pokemon. Unfortunately, the only static shiny stone in the game is at the very top of a waterfall in Alfornada, and despite my best attempts to will Koraidon into becoming a mountain goat, I'm unable to reach it. Sure, the Porto Marinada auction can sell it sometimes, but there's so many items in the pool of what the auctioneers can have in stock. There is no way in a million years that they'll have a shiny. So, by the grace of Arceus itself, this dude was selling a shiny stone right when I needed it most. I immediately shove it into Judas's face to evolve her into Florges, only to be met with one of the most disturbing dex entries I've ever read in my life. Hey, Judas. We're cool, right? Anyway, there's no need to cover the fight against the Donphans in great detail. Judas with Stab Terra super effective Moonblasts, and Savior with Stab Terra super effective Surfs wipe all trace of these weird-looking elephants from the planet, and after a touching cutscene which is rudely intruded upon by a shiny Veluza, we're now free to set off towards Alfornada. Along the way, we stop by Alfornada Cavern, where Royal catches Munchies the Sableye, and I catch Crunchies the Gabite. Which, you know, definitely better for one of us than the other. Garchomp, as you probably know, is a bit of a powerhouse, and I am super excited at the prospect of getting to use one in a Nuzlocke, especially since I'm lacking a decent ground type. What a fantastic encounter! I can't wait to battle with it. We also catch a Gothitelle and a Banette right outside Alfornada, whom we name the Shape and Ghostface respectively. After the Shape oh so kindly forces me through watching the heat death of the universe, we head into town to begin the gym challenge and fight Tulip. Well, first we have to fight a certain murderer, again, which is uneventful aside from the fact that her Palmy paralyzes me 5 times in a row with Spark, which is only a 30% chance each time. Thankfully, Judas manages to take care of it before I start developing homicidal urges myself, but good lord! Mithril, whose attacking stats are just good enough to give me a tiny speck of hope, but still disappoint me at every turn, gradually chips their way through the gym trainers and Tulip herself, and 5 million years later we've acquired the gym badge. Next is Grusha, which, I won't lie, was a bit of a slaughter. Oh, not for us. Grusha's team is essentially free lunch for Bath and Tanya to just absolutely tear through. Mithril comes in to handle his Altaria, and with that, we've won possibly the easiest badge of the run. Next up is the Team Star Fairy crew, which, despite also taking a century to beat, also ends up being fairly simple. Winger takes out Ortega's Azumarill, and was also totally dead to a crit there, but I already used up all my bad luck on Nemona, so suck it, Ortega! Mithril clears out his Darkspawn and Wigglytuff, and then Jekyll comes in to set up and finish off the Starmobile. We call it a night after that to get in some off-screen grinding for the battles ahead, which is something we've done several times already. The only reason I'm bringing attention to it now is because while I was genociding the local Chansey population, this happened. Welcome to the family, Egg. Finally, Shoop, the shiny Hoppip from the beginning of the run, can have a friend. I can't wait for these shinies to rot in the box for eternity, because they're a Chansey and a Hoppip. Like, don't get me wrong, Blissey's a tank and everything, but by this point I have way better checks as special attackers, and by that I mean I have a Florges who probably wants to kill me in my sleep. The false Dragon Titan similarly doesn't pose too many issues. I bring Timon out of her dusty old box and teach her Power Whip, and she immediately proves my decision to keep her in the box for so long correct by missing 2 of them in a row. But eventually she manages to beat Dondozo, twice, while Yacht demolishes the following Tatsugiri fight. I've skipped over a few encounters because honestly they just haven't been super important yet, so here's a quick lightning round. We caught Mulch the Skrelp and Gulch the Finion from the North Paldean Sea. From Sakarat Trail I catch Ironworm the Fortress, and Royal makes a Sudowoodo's day by actually mistaking it for a tree and naming it Ironwood. From Casseroya Lake we catch Seinfeld the Slowpoke and Sharktail the Tatsugiri. From North Province Area 1 it's Bolcut the Espathra and Mohall the Hawlucha. And finally from Area 2 it's the boys the Phalanx and the girl boss the Scyther. It's been pretty smooth sailing for a while now, which is making me a bit nervous, but we only have one major fight left before we can start prepping for the Elite Four and other endgame battles. Surely Eri can't be that bad! I was right! Eri wasn't that bad. For me. Her lead, Toxicroak, basically can't touch Jekyll, who is now back in her Sensu form, which gives me the freest Quiver Dance Air Slash sweep of the century. If Air Slash missed against Annihilate or Lucario, there was a chance she could get one-shot, but it didn't, and we all lived happily ever after, is what I would say. Unfortunately, Royal had it just a little bit harder than me. His Tinkaton managed to set up a couple of Swords Dances and was doing just fine, until she got one-shot by Annihilape's close combat. Not even a crit. Annihilape is just that beefed up, which now leaves him without a good answer to the rest of Ares' team. He's forced to send in Munchies to Sableye next, in hopes of stalling this murderous monkey out of Rage Fist, but it gets a crit. That's two massive losses one after the other. Tinkaton for Royal, and Garchomp for me. And at that point, we're just convinced he's gonna wipe right there and then, because there is no one on his team who can really survive even one hit from this thing. So Hawlucha is sent out, next on the chopping block. But Mohall was having none of this. He refused to die so soon after joining the team. And with the help of the chip damage Munchies managed to leave behind before his death, an Aerial Ace finally takes Annihilape off the battlefield. We're still in it! Luckily, Ares Lucario can't particularly hurt Hyde, so out he comes to set up Quiver Dances and promptly sweep the rest of Ares' team. Holy sh**. Bless you, Mohall. I would rather shove a cheese grater down my throat than go through the beginning tutorial for a third time. With all 18 badges under our belt, the only thing left to do is to finish up the 3 storylines and head to the final confrontation in Area 0. Which is easier said than done. Not only do we have a whole Elite Four and Champion to get through, but we've got to fight all 3 of our rivals. We'll be going in level order for the sake of clarity, which means we've got to fight our way through the Pokemon League first of all. And these Elite Four are no joke, especially with the restrictions the Soul Link rules impose on us. Luckily, Scarlet and Violet mark the first time that the mainline games allow you to change out your team between each battle, so we'll be making full use of that to optimize our build for each member of the Elite Four. And, of course, Geeta, but she's, you know, Geeta. Let's just say she's the least threatening trainer here. First up is Rika, who just overall has extremely good coverage for all of the ground type's weaknesses, so whatever we do, this will be a risky fight. I lead off with Ironworm, which may seem like a strange choice at first, but Rika has a Donphan with Sturdy and Poison Jab, which has a good chance of just one-shotting most of my team if it crits, so I have Ironworm set up a layer of spikes on the first turn. I'd set up more, but he's dead to a crit here, so I switch into Judas to tank Whiscash's hits with her ridiculous special defense and set up a Sunny Day. The plan from here is to sweep with one-turn Solar Beams, but in the midst of my brain jitters from fighting the Elite Four in my first Nuzlocke ever, and also just Rika in general, I forget to set up Calm Minds, which means that Camerupt survives a Solar Beam and gets off a yawn before being taken down. Now, if I wasn't busy being so damn gay, I had another chance to set up here. Just full restore Judas and then begin setting up Calm Minds, since Camerupt is also a special attacker, and I trust Judas to be able to survive a non-stab flash cannon. But instead, I just Solar Beam it again to kill, which brings out Donphan right as Judas falls asleep. While she might survive one Poison Jab, I'm not confident in her living a critical hit which poisons. So I'm forced to switch back into Ironworm, who's immune to poison moves. Donphan ends up going for Iron Head, but same difference. It then starts going for earthquakes, which lets me get a relatively safe switch to Timon Nizarina. I figure she's just my best bet for the rest of this fight in general, so I terrestrialize her and go for Dropkick, which it lives on what must be a sliver of health. Thankfully, Dropkick drops its attack, meaning Timon can comfortably survive a poison jab and knock it out the next turn, but I am shaking and crying right now. I heal her up as Rika sends out Dugtrio, but it also just goes for Earthquakes, meaning I can safely take it out to bring out her final Pokemon, Podsire, which is honestly about as threatening as it looks. For some reason, it has no poison moves other than Toxic, and either way, I'm confident in Timon's ability to outspeed and one-shot with Dropkick. Despite its best attempts to delay the inevitable march of death with a couple of protects, it soon falls to a single Dropkick, winning us the battle. Okay, that could have gone horribly wrong if anything crit or poisoned at any point, but we somehow made it out. I was too busy with my own problems to pay attention to what Royal was doing, but I'm pretty sure he just used Lunch of the Earthworm because ground immunity. Man had Savior using Metronome of all things, so I'm sure he did just fine. Next is the child who I'm assuming got lost in the league building and just kinda oopsed her way into becoming an Elite Four member. You know, kinda like how IKEA gets its workforce. Anyway, I'm using humor to deflect from the fact that Poppy is fucking scary. I don't really have anything that can tank her attacks, and by that I mean I have a Toxapex that could totally tank all of her attacks, but I'm never going to be allowed to use a poison type for the rest of this run, because Hershey's exists. Eventually, I spot a funny little Pokemon in my boxes. Now, the tough thing about Poppy's team is that her Magnezone has Sturdy and her Bronzong has Levitate, both of which are pretty inconvenient for me as a person. However, I have a Mold Breaker Haxorus, and not even Arceus itself can stop her from going on an earthquaking rampage. Sturdy? Nope, don't have it anymore, sorry. Levitate? Who needs a ground type immunity anyway? Now, there's two issues with this strategy. One is that her lead, Copperajah, has Play Rough, which there is absolutely zero chance of good old Knife here surviving. So my one chance here is to one-shot it with Earthquake before Copperajah can get off an attack, and sweep through her team until Bronzong comes out, where I can set up Dragon Dances to easily one-shot Poppy's ace, Dinkaton. So, as Copperajah comes out to start the battle, I click Earthquake and... fantastic! Now, all I need to do is to get to Bronzong and... well, there's the second issue. As great as Knife is, she still can't really hit birds with Earthquake, and none of her other moves are strong enough to take it down without risking an Iron Defense body press. I honestly didn't plan for this possibility. Somehow, the fact that Corviknight could come out before I got to set up never crossed my mind, and none of the rest of my team can really handle this thing. So I just send out my bulkiest Pokemon, the Gothitelle that was on my team just so Royal could use Bayonet, and pray. And that's when the shape turned to me, put her hand on my shoulder, and said, "Don't worry, I've got this." This Gothitelle I never expected to use, who still had her freshly caught moveset because I could not be bothered to change things around, spat in the face of God and decided that she was going to go Ultra Instinct and there was nothing on this earth that was going to stop her. Type matchups be damned. See, Gothitelle, at the level I caught her at, knew Psych Up, which in most situations is not a great move, but here, it was the shape's secret weapon. Because Poppy's Corviknight decided to go for Iron Defense over and over and boost her defense to the max. And the funny thing about Psych Up is that it copies the opponent's stat changes, meaning I now have a +6 defense Gothitelle out on the field, a Pokemon who is already known for its bulk. And what did this Harbinger of Destruction do? She proceeded to hit what must have been at least 10 Hypnosises in a row, allowing her to gradually whittle down Poppy's team with a combination of Fake Tears and Psychics. I was in complete and utter awe as I watched what had once been a possible sack go toe-to-toe with 4 incredibly powerful skill types and win. I am never doubting you again, the Shape. You literally saved this run. Larry is up next, but he goes by significantly easier than the rest of his colleagues. Mostly because I just have Juggle switch to her pom-pom style, set up Quiver Dances, and then sweep with Air Slash and Revelation Dance. It's a simple strategy, but it works. And it's a nice change of pace from the last two battles, where I messed up my strategy twice in a row. The easy battles don't last, however, as now it's Hassle's turn to completely blindside me somehow. I lead off with a Yacht to set up a long light screen with Light Clay, and Noivern just keeps spamming Super Fang, even when she's at half health. So after the third one, I assume I'm safe to go for a Play Rough, but then it switches to Air Slash for no reason. We both miss, but what the actual f— I genuinely think the AI cheats you and predicts your move. Yacht eventually brings it down, but because I had to keep healing, because it is literally impossible to predict what this Noivern would do next, the light screen runs out right as Dragalge comes in, which is the Pokemon I needed the light screen up for in the first place. Great! I switch in Bolt Cut because, honestly, I just don't really have anything else. Some heal stalling and a Calm Mind later, she's able to one-shot the Dragalge, but this then brings in Haxorus with Crunch. At this point, I knew I would probably have to sack off Bolt Cut here for a clean switch. I was not confident that Yacht could live a critical hit Crunch from her current health, not with Haxorus' monstrous physical attack, and if I lost Yacht, I would probably just lose the battle there and then. So I had Bolt Cut set up a Reflect, which allowed her to survive another Crunch. And for a moment, I dared to hope that she might live another one, allowing her to finish off Haxorus herself. But then it got the defense drop, and I knew it was time to say goodbye. Bolt Cut gets off one more Lumina Crash before Haxorus delivers its final blow. But Bolt Cut refused to die today! The Sheik must have left the team with her blessing, because somehow, when all seemed lost for our little ostrich friend, she lived another Crunch on 1 HP, which lets her cleanly take out the dragon with another Lumina Crush on the next turn. At this point, Bolt Cut has earned the right to retire peacefully, and with the Reflect up, I'm able to safely switch to Cadbury when Flapple comes out. It didn't end up mattering because it went for Dragon Pulse, but let Bolt Cut have her moment, okay? While Cadbury tanks a few more hits, I heal up Yacht to full health before having Cadbury finish off Flapple with some Play Roughs, which at last brings out Hassle's ace, his Baxcalibur, which would be a lot more scary if Yacht didn't just completely wall this thing. She resists all its moves, so I can switch her in on literally anything and she'll live. And 2 Play Roughs later, the battle is won. Now, all that's left is to defeat Geeta herself. I'm a little wary of underestimating her considering what happened with Cloth at the beginning of this run, so we make sure to prepare a decent team going in. But still, it's only Geeta. If the Elite Four's combined forces weren't enough to take any lives, I highly doubt Geeta can compete. And so we head on out onto the roof to begin the battle. Against her Espathra, I lead off with Ironworm, who is equipped with Toxic Spikes and a very enticing Panic Button. But Royal tells me it's only for emergencies because he doesn't want his Sudowoodo to die and all that stuff, so I'm not allowed to use it yet. Instead, I go the boring route and put down 2 layers of Toxic Spikes. And Ironworm was totally dead to a crit here, but like, whatever. With that setup done, I can send out Seinfeld, who has grown into a beautiful Slowbro and who I've taught Shadow Ball. 2 of those take out Geeta's own Bolt Cut, with a bit of a close call, but it's fine, he made it. And baits in her Kingambit. Not planned, I'm not that smart, but it is better to get this out as early as possible thanks to its ability. I switch into Bath on a resisted Kowtow Cleave, whose power is lessened even more thanks to his Intimidate, to the surprise of absolutely nobody. Raging Bull one-shots Kingambit, even through the Reflect, and out comes Go-Go to take its place. This thing has both Play Rough and Zen Headbutt, so there is no chance I'm letting Bath stay in here. Instead, I let Cadbury take the lead for a while. He's surprisingly bulky, so I just have him spam Charm to counter Go-Go's bulk up, while it slowly dies of toxic damage. I also take the time to heal up my injured Pokemon in the back, since I'm still going to need them later. Avalugg comes in after Go-Goat, so I just do the same thing. Avalugg would take forever to kill either way, so I may as well. Next is Veluza, and while I could just Toxic Stall again, I send in Seinfeld instead to wall it and take it out with a few more Shadow Balls. And then, at last, Geeta's ace, Glimmora, who is also a setup Pokemon. Geeta, what are you doing? I may be sassing her, but this Glimmora actually does a lot of damage to Seinfeld, and since the Surf doesn't quite manage to kill, I'm gonna have to switch. Ironworm comes in on an immune sludge wave, which at least means she won't be going for that anymore. I want to press the panic button here because haha funny, but Royal said no, so I sigh and switch into Timon on a Terra Blast instead, which she doesn't tank very well at all, but Glamora's only got a little bit of health left. Now, let's have a little quiz. Look at these two Pokemon. Serena, the queen, with legs for absolute days. And then, this literal rock that attaches itself to cave walls. Which one do you think is faster? Go on, guess. If you assumed, like me, that the Pokemon whose defining feature is literally her legs would probably outspeed, you are absolutely incorrect. Because Glamora goes first and proceeds to kill Timon with another Terra Blast. Whoops. This one stung a little bit. Not because I really cared about Timon. I was mostly just upset because this was definitely a death I could have prevented if I'd looked at their stats a little harder. Oh well. Rest in peace, Queen. Queens. Yeah, that also kills Royal's Pyroar, his only fire type. My bad. Anyway, after taking great care in checking the speeds this time, I bring in Bath to finish the fight with a Raging Bull, defeating Geeta and earning us the rank of Champion Trainer. And despite all my begging, my attempts to get Geeta to put up a restraining order on Nemona have been unsuccessful, and we're forced to have one last battle with her. But not quite yet. We have a few things to take care of first. Namely, battling Arven. Neither of us really gave that much thought to this battle. His team isn't that great and there's only one or two really threatening Pokemon on there, so we loosely build a team and start the fight. And as Bath is facing off against Arven's Greedent, this happens. Come on, Bath.
I should have told Metro or something.
Hey Royal, look at my stream real quick!
Okay. What the fuck?
What are you doing there? Arven, already pissed at Royal for letting his own Mabostiff die in the Medali gym, does not find this as funny as we do. And this is when everything begins to go horribly, horribly wrong. As I'm working my way through Arven's team, Royal begins to struggle. See, Arven's Cloyster has Skill Link, and knows the moves Icicle Spear and Rock Blast, meaning both moves will always hit the full 5 times, dealing massive damage to pretty much anything. And it also has Liquidation, which has a 20% chance of dropping the opponent's defense. Royal's Pokemon, collectively, have their defenses dropped 3 times in a row. This, unfortunately, means he has to sack off Sharktail the Tatsugiri in order to get a heal off on Ghostface the Bayonet, as well as a clean switch. Death number 1 to Arven. I'm sure you can pick up what I'm putting down here. Luckily, Ghostface manages to finish off the Cloyster, which then brings in Mabostiff, and Royal decides to stay in with Ghostface in hopes of getting a Will-O-Wisp off. But he doesn't even get the chance to try, because Mabostiff outspeeds and immediately one-shots Ghostface with a Stab Terra super effective crunch. Death number 2. By this point, I've won my battle, so all I can do is kinda just sit there and listen as Royal's situation grows more and more dire. He sends in Breloom and is pretty much forced to stall out Mabostiff's Play Roughs and Psychic Fangs, just for a chance to even get an attack off. After a long time of stalling, it eventually starts going for other moves, leading him to believe that it's finally run out. So he goes for Drain Punch. But psych! It was just lulling him into a false sense of security, and went for Psychic Fangs the very next turn, finishing off Shrum the Breloom. Death number 3. Hershey's comes out next, and thankfully, a few minutes later, manages to stall it to death with poison damage. So Arven just wiped out 3 of our Pokemon in one fight? Neat! Man, Jerry was there, but the Shape and Seinfeld had done so well in the last few fights. The Shape was an especially upsetting loss for me after her performance against Poppy. But we're not done yet, so we have to move on and finish this. For them. Before we can fight Cassiopeia, we've got to get through Clavel first. Sorry, Clive. No, wait. Yep, that's Clavel. Man, what a reveal. Anyway, his leader Anguru is free setup fodder, and Jekyll destroys his team, as she's done so many times before. Also, this happens halfway through the battle, and I feel legally obligated to show it. Haha, funny game is buggy because the higher-ups don't let the devs actually finish their games. Anyway, moving on to the actual star of the show here. Penny indulges the dream I'm sure every single one of us had as kids to have a full evolution team. And honestly, slay queen. This could have 100% been another Jekyll sweep, but I thought she deserved a rest. And also that strat is really boring. So I let the whole team have their place in the sun this battle. I was fairly confident that I would be completely fine going in, but that confidence was completely and irreparably shattered when Flareon came in. Avery, you must be saying, what are you scared of? You have a huge power Azumarill, you are completely fine here. Here's the thing, Flareon has Fire Spin, which isn't scary by itself, but it was also using Flare Blitz, which deals recoil damage. And then the horrifying thought that I could lose Yacht here settles in my head. If Flareon faints itself with recoil damage, while Yacht is unable to switch out due to Fire Spin, and Penny sends out Leafeon, there is no chance in hell that Yacht will survive a Leaf Blade from that thing. And my worst fears come true when Flareon Flare Blitzes itself to death before Yacht has time to free herself from the Fire Spin. I'm in no way prepared to say goodbye, but I don't think I have a choice. The Pokemon who's carried me through so many battles with her absolutely busted typing has finally met her match. Until I realized that the effects of Fire Spin go away if you take out your opponent, which nobody told me. So Yacht lives another day, and we both managed to defeat Penny without any further losses. Before we can leave for the best section of the game, there's one more thing we have to do. Beat Nemona one last time. And let me tell you, I was shaking in my boots at the mere thought of this battle. Nemona ended my first run before it could even find its footing. And there was a very good chance she could end my second one right before the final boss. Yacht leads off the fight with a Light Clay, setting up a light screen, while Lycanroc goes for Stealth Rock. Little scary, but I can work with that. She then proceeds to just annihilate it with a Liquidation, bringing out Nemona's Pawmot, the one who'd wiped my team all that time ago. I was not about to let it take any more lives. Your reign of terror ends here. I switch into Bike, expecting a double shock. Out of everyone on my team, he has the best chance of living it. But Pawmot goes for Ice Punch instead, which I don't understand, because Yacht is part water and resists that move? Can someone please explain the AI in this game to me? Because I'm pretty sure Nemona's just throwing darts at a board here, and/or has genuinely gone clinically insane. It's not even a case of reading the switch, because right after, it starts going for close combats instead. Accepting that the AI maybe just had one too many, I stall it out of close combats and then get off an Earthquake to take it out in one shot. Again, I could have set up on this thing with Bulk Ups, but honestly, I didn't think of that until after I had pressed the button, so whoops. Next up is Goodra, who, again, is what I had set up the light screen for, but Pawmot decided to be an unpredictable brat. So I was afraid to send Yacht back in, not knowing if she'd live a Sludge Bomb or not. I decide to just keep Bike in since he definitely survives, and what ensues is one of the longest stalls I've ever had to do in a game of Pokemon. But eventually, Goodra runs out of Sludge Bombs and Ice Beams, and at that point, there's nothing it or Nemona can do to prevent Bike from setting up to max attack and defense and sweeping her team. You know, apart from getting 3 accuracy drops with Muddy Water, which complicates things a bit, but Bike is apparently fresh from the optometrist, because when it counts, he hits those Earthquakes, those Horn Leeches, those Leaf Blades, and in the end, I managed to achieve the perfect revenge. You're gonna traumatize me with a Pawmi, Nemona? Oh well, I'm gonna make sure this Go-Goat haunts your dreams for the rest of time. Sleep well. Oh yeah, also, Royal had to sack Robocop the Doug Trio to get a clean switch against her to Dunsparce. But before that, he gave her a chance. The possibility of fame, of glory. If Robocop truly, earnestly wanted to live, all she had to do was hit Fissure.
Miss!
Yeah, no, Fissure is a joke and Robocop died. Which means we now have to dig graves for the second pair we ever caught out in the wild. Arnold had been severely outclassed for quite a bit now, but he had helped me out with the early game, and I won't forget that contribution. Rest well, soldier. With the great evil of the world defeated, we only have one mission left. Fight the AI professors to save the region of Paldea. So, with 2 murderers and Penny in tow, we descend into the depths of Area Zero, where we can actually get one final encounter. And drumroll please, our last encounters of the game are Screamtail and Dunsparce, because I really needed another fairy type, and Royal needed a grim reminder of his Doug Trio's killer. We named them and stuff them in the box for eternity, because we already have our team built and don't need any new arrivals messing things up. There's a short gauntlet of battles against wild Paradox Pokemon that we have to go through before we can reach the Zero Lab, and I was a little bit frightened. I mean, these things are just a few stat points short of being considered pseudo-legendaries, so I personally think I was right to be cautious, but they weren't that bad, which made the upcoming final confrontation feel just a little bit less daunting. But enough dilly-dallying. We got an ecosystem to save. Defeating a full team of 6 ultra-powerful Paradox Pokemon is no easy feat. We're gonna need to bring our A-game here. I lead off with Jekyll against what might be my favorite Pokemon of all time now, but unfortunately nepotism won't save its life today, and Jekyll cleanly takes it out with a single Air Slash. Fluttermane follows closely after, with their terrifying 135 base special attack stat. But joke's on Sada, I brought a secret weapon. That's right, baby! Egg is fully evolved and ready to tear any special attacker to shreds. Did you really think we were never going to use these shinies? Egg might not pack a lot of punch, but Fluttermane can barely touch her, and I've taught her Shadow Ball. Considering Fluttermane's special defense is just as high as its special attack, I was ready to sit through a 10-hit KO. But no! Egg is not having any of this nonsense today, and she almost immediately lands a critical hit, demolishing Mischievous' unsuspecting grandma. Screamtail comes out next to avenge the fallen, but a quick switch to Cadbury pretty much walls this thing. Its attack stat is pathetic, so Cadbury can take his time chipping away at its health, eventually bringing it down. Sada then sends out Sandy Shocks, but it's no match for Egg, for she is invincible. It may take months, maybe even years, but Egg will always win. Sandy Shocks too succumbs to the onslaught of Egg the Shiny Blissey, and this is where this chapter of her story ends. She has done well and earned a safe and peaceful retirement to the PC box. Brute Bonnet is next on the scene, and Jekyll is back out to deal with it. Unfortunately, a Revelation Dance doesn't quite get the kill, meaning Brute Bonnet can retaliate with a pretty nasty payback. Thinking it would just go for another payback, I mindlessly click Revelation Dance again, but it goes for Sucker Punch, which Jekyll survives on 2 HP, allowing her to finish off Brute Bonnet right after. Jekyll has truly been the star member of my team. She's swept countless opponents and gone through so many changes on this journey with us, but out next is Roaring Moon, the ace of Sada's team, and I'm not confident that either of my slow fairy types would be able to tank the 2 hits needed to cut off an attack after a switch, especially with it getting an attack boost as soon as it comes out. Reviewing my options, it's looking like my best bet is to sack Jekyll so Cadbird can come in and close off the fight. And I'm not gonna lie, this was probably the most upsetting realization I've had in this entire run. Jekyll was one of my earliest encounters, and has carried this team through so much. I have no doubt in my mind that many more would have died had she not always been there by my side. And now, to guarantee the safety of the rest of the team one more time, she must make the ultimate sacrifice. We both knew what had to be done. So, with a heavy heart, I clicked air slash in the vain hope she could get off some chip damage before ultimately giving her life to the cause. Goodbye, Jekyll. It's been an honor to be your trainer. But Jekyll never dies! She did not come all this way just to never get to see the ending of her story. And frankly, I agree. But I still need a clean switch, so one life for another. I think that's a fair trade. Cadbury comes out to take its place, and it's perhaps poetic that, on the other side, Hershey's is finishing this battle, having lived on 2 HP himself. Cadbury tanks an earthquake, and one play rough seals the battle. I've never been that good with these closing thoughts kind of stuff. I'm honestly just happy that we managed to beat our first, proper attempt at this Nuzlocke. We've all forgotten what happened at the very beginning of this video, so let me just pretend this was our first attempt. It's probably the most stressed I've ever been, and also some of the most fun I've had playing video games in a while. I'd also just like to give a huge shout out to Royal for doing this Nuzlocke with me. Thanks, buddy. Sorry for all the bullying. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll find a cure for the British soon. And to anyone who's made it this far, thank you as well. I really enjoy making this style of video, so, do the old subscriber-only if you enjoyed it, and enjoy the rest of your day.